Alright, girls and guys, we're going to replace this motor. It's a Briggs 20. Feels like the connecting rod let go in it because it spins a little bit and stops. I already took the hood off. It's pretty easy to do. The hood just hooks into these clips. So when you bring it forward, you disconnect the light. And then bring it back a little bit. Get your hand in front of it, lift it up and pull back. It just S-hinges it sitting there so it gets out of your way. And then we're going to start with the exhaust. Take this nut out. Sometimes these don't come out. They look like pretty tight. I lucked out on that one. Alright, you see both of them came out. I lucked out. We'll leave that hanging. And you gotta come over to your electrical. There's this one. It's a 6-pin connector. That's what holds everything wiring to the motor, so you disconnect that. And what else we got? We get a behind the seat fuel tank. So that means we get a fuel pump. So we have to disconnect this line, which comes up around the corner right here. Little squeeze clamp. We'll undo that. There we go, the line's disconnected. Now you get your throttle cable. This is Torx bit. And then when you loosen up this clamp, you can just, this is shaped like an S. You can just unconnect it from the throttle. This size is a T20, it seems. Let's get this undone. There we go. And there we go, that's off. So now the only thing is underneath. There's 4 of these bolts. Got to get those out. Sometimes I find it simple to take the big bolt out of the pulley and let the pulley drop down. Take the centering rod off for the deck. And this is just a little clip. You got to bend it and kind of snake it out of there. You can see how it's got the thing right here. You just got to bend this out and get it off. Slide this out. You got to be careful, the deck will fall. You might have to hold it up. And then you can slide it back out through here. And once we do that, we can work on getting the clutch out. Nah, I don't think that came out that easy. I had to use a ratchet. My drill wasn't strong enough. And just because the motor failed inside, it was holding it for me. Otherwise, you'd have to find a way to hold the motor from spinning or use an air impact. So this one here was a 5/8. So I went and took the center bolt out as you saw on the pulley. And what you'll see is this particular one is an electrical engaged clutch. If you have a manual engage for your blades, then this isn't an issue, but right here we have to disconnect this electrical connector and then slide it through the hole. As you can see, I got it off, right, but I got to unplug it in order to pull it out all the way. So once you take the center bolt out and give it a couple of taps with a hammer, it should slide off. If you need, you might need to use a puller, which I didn't. I just gave it a couple of taps and it slid off the crankshaft. And now we got to disconnect it here. Alright, once we get the crank out of the way, you see, the pulley. That was the pulley for this. You're engaging your blades. Well, now you see you got this one up here. This is secondary, and this one here is connected to a belt. That is for your drive. It can be pretty tight getting it off, but if it is too tight and it's hitting items, like this one's hitting something, I just leave it in there. And once we loosen up the motor, you just pull the motor out. So the motors are these bolts right here. There's going to be 4 of them in each corner. You got to find them. And I'm going to try it with my impact gun. Sometimes that doesn't get it out, and you might have to ratchet them out. Once you get those out, we should be able to lift the motor up. All right, so we get the bolts out. But then the last thing I remembered is you got to actually get the belt off, because the belt's under tension. So what the belt's doing is taking the pulley and pulling it that way, pulling at the crank. So sometimes you can snake it out with your fingers. Try not to get your fingers jammed. And then, there we go, yep. A little stuck. I'm using my puller. I want you to see in there that I put a socket on the end of the shaft for the puller, because the puller is a tapered shaft. You don't want that going in the hole where the threads are, because that's where the bolt goes. It holds that whole pulley assembly on there. You'll damage the threads. So you see I put a socket on the end of that, and then put the arms up over the top of the pulley, and then I'll see if I can get it to come out. Alright, so I broke it free. But then the socket, see I got the socket out of there now, it will walk around in there, and if it hits the sides, you're going to end up actually pushing against your pulley, so I took it out. But now it's moving easily, so the threads will be okay, and you can see it slowly coming down. Alright, we got the pulley off, and then I forgot to tell you guys one thing, the most important wire. You gotta take this off. Now, normally you'd want to disconnect the battery first. My battery's dead, so it won't matter, and the reason for that is because if you're wrenching this and you connect this to steel anywhere in metal, you're gonna arc it out, scare the shit out of yourself, weld your wrench to the frame. All those things are concerns, but the battery's dead in this thing, so we shouldn't have a problem. And then we'll stick this up here out of the way, and now we can take the motor out. Alright guys, I got the new motor here. What I like to do to make it easy to get that first pulley on. Some systems come with 2 pulleys, but like this one, and sometimes they come with one large pulley. It's got a little pulley up top and the big one on the bottom. Makes it a little easier if you put wood here first, just so the crankshaft doesn't come down too high. And then you can get the pulley on and feed the belt around it. And what can make the belt easier to get on is actually pull the brake. You guys can see, so what you want to do is actually put the cruise control on. That'll loosen the belt up. Because once you get the belt on here, it pulls back on the motor. It's tough for you to line up, the bolts like that one there. So what you can do is put the cruise control on. That'll loosen up the belt, and then it'll allow you to slide this over it and get it up into the keepers. And then once put your bolts in by hand, once they're all started, then bolt them down. I removed the wood from the motor, so the motor came back down, and now it's bolted in. So now we'll finish up the rest. We gotta slide this pulley up, and then put the bigger pulley on that has the PTO. Alright guys, so once you get the clutch in, right, you put it in there loosely, and then you see this rod right here. This sits in an indent in the housing. So the easiest thing to do is to unbolt it, slide it out of the way, and then move the clutch till you line up the spot, which we can't see right now. It must be on the other side. And then tighten that back up. That holds this in place. Alright. So see, you can see it. Put the rod right in that little slot, and that's what keeps the clutch from spinning around when the engine starts up, and then it'll engage this. Alright, now we can start hooking up all the electrical and change the oil and see if it'll fire up. For the exhaust, pretty easy. You take this bolt out, you take this bolt out, and then this whole cage falls down. And if you look in here, it's actually just a tab little bent angle. It sits in there. It's like a hinge. And then you can put the exhaust up. You know, it's in there loose now because I got to get my exhaust gasket, but that's how we got the exhaust in. We finished tightening up that for the clutch. I put the connectors on. Those are self-explanatory. Put the battery in. Gave it a quick kick with the key. It kicks over, so I'm going to change the oil and address some other things. Alright, so now we're going to hook up the throttle cable. You can see it's got an S-bend. And you just put that in the throttle piece, wedge it around, and then you stick it in here. And then what you do is put the throttle all the way low. It gives you the most amount of throttle. And then we'll adjust it. Once you get the cable in, move your throttle all the way to the full choke position. And then you pull this all the way back as far as it can go, and then tighten it right there, and that will give you full throttle choke. Alright guys, I was talking about the hood earlier. You see those hinges? You tilt it forward a little bit, and then you can lift the whole hood up. So you drop it in straight down till those hook in, and then they rest. And then don't forget to hook up your headlight. And then another thing I want to show you guys I just did, it's not pretty, but what you do is you take the footsteps off. You see on the back here they get these tabs. You just push the tab in with your screwdriver, pop them off. And I wire brushed any of the rust off, taped it off, and sprayed on a rubber spray. That way it will help hopefully slow down the rust or stop the rust. Because what happens is water builds up under there and it causes it to rust. And if you don't treat it, it'll rot right through. So that's what I did for both footwells. And then hopefully soon we can get the deck put back on and start it up.